Here are some clips of family members that I interviewed, starting with my friend Steve. What do you know about Tourette's?
So I don't know much. The first experience I had with Tourette's was when I was a student in college, and I went to this coffee shop, and there was a man who always came into the coffee shop, and he was always twitching, and he also, I think he had this form where he swore a lot. He would just blurt out swear words, and everyone knew his name was Steve. But he never talked to anybody. He'd just get a coffee and then he'd sit at the table and he'd wait for himself to settle down, and then he'd drink, and then when he was done with his coffee, he'd leave. And one day he was sitting at the table right next to mine, and he was facing me, and he seemed to be calm. And I looked at him, and we made eye contact, and I said, "Steve, how are you doing, today?" And he looked up at me, he goes, "Yeah, today's pretty good." And he goes, "How are you doing, Steve?" And it kind of shocked me because he knew my name. And I thought it was funny because when I saw him always come in twitching, I just felt like maybe he wasn't aware, of his surroundings, or somehow he was just like in his own world. But obviously he probably knew as much about everyone around him as we knew about him. And he was, just as aware as anyone else was at the coffee shop. So that was a good lesson.
What my friend Steve was talking about reminds me of when people look at me weird when I'm twitching in the halls of my school, Avalon, and my old school, Washburn. It makes me feel uncomfortable, embarrassed, and I wish it would stop. But I don't blame the people. I mean, if I saw someone walking down the hall, I'd think it was strange too. But it's just Tourette's. I can't really help it. And that's what Steve's friend was going through too. Probably. People looked at him in the coffee shop. Next up is my Aunt Kate. What's your reaction to me when I twitch?
My reaction to you when you twitch? I think, you're my nephew, and I felt protective of you since you were a little baby, so I think I always want to protect you from being hurt, and I think you've had a lot of hard things in your life, and so I think part of what I just feel when you twitch is I just worry that it's hard on you, and I want it to not be hard on you, and yeah, so I just feel like protective, I think. And then also, like, I've seen you adapt to it and do a lot of, it's also gotten just much more normal, so sometimes I don't even notice,
Next up, we have Rachel. What do you think people with Tourette's should do to calm down? If they're struggling and want to calm down?
I suppose find an activity that's really soothing. Like for you, you found music, right? You told me that.
Yeah.
Playing the guitar, you don't do your twitches. Or like when you were on the climber today, I didn't see you twitching. When you're using your...
Yeah, well, I didn't want to fall off the climber.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. I suppose. You said when you were pushing the stroller, you can actually be like, not twitch so much because you don't want to hurt the baby or something, So yeah. I thought that was pretty cool, that you can really, tell your mind not to do it. But, so what, it seems like you're doing meditations, calming activities.
Yeah.
Taking your meds. I don't know, any other things that have been helpful that I don't know about?
Well, my mom suggested doing rhythm, which means like listening to music and humming like in your head to the beat, or tapping your foot.
Cool.
Because no one would notice that.
Really. Yeah, it's cool. It's kind of like takes up neural pathways or something. It kind of occupies your mind so that you don't twitch, do you think?
Yeah.
Jordan, when you're about to twitch, does it feel to you like Like you can feel it just before it happens?
Yeah. It's just like the sudden snap where I just suddenly twitch.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're doing something like playing the guitar or something that occupies your concentration and
Or
is like
playing piano
channeling-
helps.
I was really noticing when you were playing the guitar that it seemed like your legs
'Cause
got really still and
Yeah, I was enjoying the music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, Dan,
sorry. I was talking.
thank you for your time.
Hey, thank you for interviewing me.
You're welcome. Hey everybody. At the end of 2018, that's when my twitches really started to act up. I had to go to the hospital. And here's how they were back then.
Interesting. Okay, take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. There you go. All right. When you were in the nurse's office, were you able to do that for yourself?
Yes.
Okay. Did you do any of the meditations?
Yes, I did a bunch.
Okay, good. All right.
So about a week after you saw the video, my twitches got a lot worse. I had to be taken to the hospital. And the morning after I was taken to the hospital, they put me on this med that I had a bad reaction to. And then they put me on this other med that calmed me down. And then 5 days later, after I got out of the hospital, they sent me home with a med that worked for about a couple weeks and then didn't work at all. So my twitches got so bad that I almost had to go back to the hospital. And then they put me on another med, and then for a few more months, they kept putting me on meds that didn't work, and then eventually, 3 months later, they put me on this med to help suppress my twitches. So that helped.